Let's take a minute now and have a look at the chassis of this T-Maxx that we've been working on. So we've got a lot of assemblies pulled out of here, obviously, and we've covered the process of all of those. On this one, I thought it would be a really good idea just because of the amount of gunk and grime. I'll show you with our multi-purpose screwdriver, lever, and now pointer. I was noticing that all 8 screws, since we have the transmission removed, are out of the ladder braces. The front skid plate is already gone, so there's nothing attaching really anything to the front bulkhead besides these 4 Phillips screws that are right up here. And we got 4 Phillips screws that are right back here that we can pull. They do have damaged heads on them. I can already see that, so they might have to be extracted, but that'll let us put in hex hardware all the way around and break the truck down into 3 assemblies. We're going to have the rear assembly with the tires, differential, suspension, all that. The chassis assembly and a front assembly. Again, tires, differential, suspension, everything from the front end. And we can clean this stuff up and diagnose any other problems it might have. Also, I'm going to be pulling the shock towers and replacing them with 3.3 shock towers on the front and the back. And you know what, while we're at it, since I'm going to be changing around some servos, it's not going to have reverse anymore, and this battery box is pretty much toast right here. We're going to pull out all the electronics, clean everything, get all this gunk out of here, and if we come up against anything else, we'll be able to address it then.
Cool stuff is done. And I'm almost finished. I'm almost finished. Almost finished. Look it. And then it all fits.
Cool. I like it, dude.
Yum, 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 yum. Yum, yum, yum. And what's that noise?
I'm working on this, dude. What, are you going to clean?
Yeah, I'm gonna wait.
You're going to wait till when?
Right here.
You're going to wait right there?
Yeah. Is this off? Yeah, ding and ding. So where did I steal my bottle? Yeah, I did. But what the heck? What the heck? Why is the thing all wet?
Because it's got cleaning stuff on it to make the car clean. So keep cleaning.
What over here?
Yeah, get all of it. Look, I have a brush too. So we can do it together.
Yeah. I need to do this one, I need to do that one. All done.
I don't know about all done, buddy, but we're getting there.
Plus,
What should I clean?
This one, this part, and I think this part now. Well, mine wet.
Yeah. Yours works a little bit better than mine, huh?
Yeah, but yours still half wet.
No.
Only mine is wet.
See?
Yeah. And mine is wet, see?
Yeah. Works pretty good. Here, why don't you get this stuff right here? Brush on there.
Oh,
You know what? Let's take the bumper mounts off of this, dude.
Why?
Because we don't need them. Seriously? Seriously. And here comes Stinky Man. Back with his brush.
But mine really wet.
Yeah. Was that too much water? Put some on the paper towel if you have to. It'll help dry it off. And then just keep on going. Now when we took this apart, I noticed that it was modified with this triple shoe clutch, and it used aluminum clutch shoes, but then it had like a a spring wrapped around the outside of it. It was like a strange aftermarket clutch. So what I'm going to do with this one, I'm going to revert this back to a more stock setup. We got our flywheel puller here. Pretty cool. So this will work. We'll just go ahead and replace the collet. I don't want to risk using like an old busted out one. Might as well. We got that there, and then I was looking in here with my flywheel stuff, and I found this just stock regular flywheel. It would have been kind of cool to use this, but you can tell that the spread on it's not right, so it won't fit inside the clutch bell that we need to use for this. We'll go ahead and position this flywheel. Just to make sure nothing comes loose, we're going to finish it off with the channel lock and the wrench. And there we go. Now we're ready to install the clutch. And the clutch is just going to be your standard Traxxas double shoe clutch. And an important aspect of this is you want to make sure that wherever the spring lands, where it's jointed, is kind of like in the middle of one of the grooves, as opposed to it being like at the seams. So I have noticed that creates a little bit of extra strain on the spring and could cause it to break. Basically going to put this in here. I got to use both hands and kind of push that up into place, making sure that you got your yin-yang look right there with the holes opposing each other. Put this on here. Sometimes the spring can be a little bit of a pill if it's in the way of it. This time it wasn't. What we're looking for is going to be two of these guys. I can kind of just tell by looking at it, but if you need a reference, you can always use one. These black bearings, if I remember right, is like what came out of there. So we'll just go ahead and use a couple of them again. One in the top, one in the bottom. And these shims here is basically to prevent the condition that we saw when we unassembled this, where the clutch shoes were rubbing on the inside face of the bell. To prevent that from happening, there's actually a couple of shims in here. So you see that little shim right there? I'm just going to put that here. And that feels very nice. And we do have clearance for the E-clip. So we're going to trusty little E-clip tool over here. I think this might actually be the right size. It's already set to. Oh, we're a little off. We can't have this go too smoothly. That's just not how old Nitro operates. Am I right, folks? Alright, so there we go. We got this on the E-clip tool. She's going to be a pain again, folks. And if you think it's bad with the E-clip tool, you could take my word for it. It's even worse without it. So sometimes you just got to be patient and commit to the definition of insanity, which is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result, because sometimes you'll get one. Case in point. There we go. Alright, so that's pretty much everything on the motor except for the pull start. I found this pull start. I rebuilt this pull start. So obviously this is just 4 bolts to go onto the back of here. But this motor has some great compression and feels good. It's pretty amazing. We got an air filter for it too we'll throw on before we're ready to go. This part of the disassembly is going to take off all the shocks, put them to the side, remove the shock tower, and then hopefully we get this diff opened up and see what's up with it. We got it halved. Now we just kind of open this guy up like so. And you'll see the outdrives just pull out, and there's your differential. And we've just got a ton of dirt encrusted onto this. This is a lot of that grease that we were talking about. And plus, after we saw the inside of the transmission, it really, like, when I'm trying to articulate this, it feels just like very, very sticky, and not like in a viscous kind of way like you might want. The internal movement of the diff is not good. So we'll pull these screws here, pull the drive shafts off at first, right? And then we'll pull these 2 screws here and pop this open and see where we're at with it. The shocks were able to come off. These shocks are in terrible condition. There's a million spacers on them in no particular order. Just about every one of these feels like it's bent. This one, that's as far the more action you can get out of it right there. So we got something going on there. These shocks will be rebuilt, or at least I will attempt to rebuild these shocks, and that goes for all the shocks in the back too. So we'll go ahead and get into it, and we can start by pulling off all the outdrives from the diff. Usually these diffs are pretty serviceable. They're pretty strong. and they don't give you too much of a problem, especially since it's the front. Generally speaking, the rear diff is going to be the one that's under a lot of stress. For whatever reason, though, on this one, they decided to give us the front diff as a problem. I'm seeing the outdrive bearings in here, and it looks absolutely disgusting. Not unlike what we saw in the transmission, it's just coming out of this thing all over the place. It's almost like, oh man. And that bearing is totally gummed up. So, front diff and probably also the rear. Once we're done pulling this apart, we're going to have to soak these bearings and kind of service them and see where we're at with it. Also, you have to make sure that you install them in the orientation they came out, or else your front or rear wheels will rotate the wrong direction. Open up, open up. So that's what we're up against in here. Now, you can see there's just a tremendous amount of that's just garbage right there. Needless to say, it's not going to articulate very well or work very well at all with that kind of crap going on in there. Let's see if we can push this through. All right. And have a look at the opposite side. We're going to be opening up this diff and figuring out what's in here and why it's giving us such a hard time. One of the reasons it's having so much trouble is these bearings on the outdrives are just absolutely covered in grease, dirt, and rust, and they're likely stuck. So we'll punch those out of the case, get the case cleaned out, clean up the propeller shaft, the pinion gear, and all the propeller shaft bearings, and get this diff rebuilt. This bearing is not cooperating with me. I just finally got it, and just like the shafts that they're on, these bearings, this bearing is probably not going to be savable. It's done. This bearing, so this is one of the outdrive bearings, that bearing does not move at all. Well, okay, it moves, but it's got a ton of roll-in resistance in it. So I'll try to get that one cleaned up. It's 50-50 whether or not we can reuse that one. So there's the other side of the case right there. Bearings right here. Just put everything in this plate. Wipe my hands off a little bit. Maybe try and see if we can get like a lot of the deposits before we do our super clean step. And you can see there's a lot of stuff coming out of here already. So it's a really good thing that we opened this up, because the motor and the drivetrain are under a ton of unnecessary strain. Alright, outdrive bearings are coming along kind of nicely. I got them freed up and they're oiled. So even though there's a little bit of dirt on the races, they actually feel pretty good. They rotate nicely. While we're inside here, we got this stuff cleaned up. The bearings, I was actually able to get them working again, which is really cool. So I won't have to try to track those down, and they should work okay. Right now I'm in the process of trying to get the actual diff internals opened up so we can have a look at them. And there's just so much gunk stuck down in the heads of these screws that the screwdriver wasn't actually able to get in there and remove the screws. So I just kind of had to pick that out. So we still got some buildup on the face of this ring gear slash like diff cover right here. Got the screws out of it, so here's the moment of truth. Let's open up the diff and see what's going on. Okay. So the diff is filled with rust and dirt. At this point, the diff barely rotates. I think you can see how much corrosion and buildup is inside of that diff. So now I'm just going to knock this diff apart. Let's start with that one. So the output shaft, the face, the beveled gear, and oh man, what a headache. These guys here, all this stuff should be freed up. I'm happy with the way it turned out. Like I said, it's not perfect, but it'll definitely work for this. We'll put the diff gears in here. So what I'm going to do now is I have this 80,000. I know a lot of people are going to say like, oh dude, what are you doing putting 80,000 in there? That's crazy. But I don't really want that much diff action on this. It's going to be strictly used in the dirt. And with the condition that these diffs were in prior to rebuilding them, I don't want it leaking out. So the high viscosity of this will it'll arrest the diff action, but it'll still have enough to get by. And we won't have to worry about hopefully we won't have to worry about the diff fluid leaking out of it. The diff is going back together. The bearings are serviced. Like, it's pretty awesome. I'm happy with it. I didn't have to buy nothing for this. So even though it was a lot of work and it needed a lot of work, it'll be cool, and I didn't have to spend a bunch of money to get it fixed up. It's just time. This will just about work. I'm kind of using the like the differential box to rest this on while I'm working on it, so it feels awesome. So, like I said before, it's really cool to be able to salvage this without having to spend a bunch of money on new stuff. Now, I'm just going to, real quick, get our bearings for either side of the case. Put the propeller shaft back together on here. Just stick that in this side since it's got the clearance for it. So here it is, put back together. I got it lubed up, and the entire assembly is functioning and working just like it should. I don't hear too much lash inside there. I hold these and they do still have a tendency to move like they're supposed to. Once this collar's on there and everything, I think it'll feel pretty good. What this is here is this is a really good opportunity to check for resistance, say in your steering linkages, kind of move stuff around. Like this one here feels a little stiff, like it might need a little bit of lubricant. And I just usually use like a Zona pen, like an oiling pen. You can also check like the steering, that doesn't feel too stiff, and of course the outdrive bearings. These outdrive bearings right here feel very stiff and are going to have to be serviced. There's resistance. You can go ahead and get the output shafts put back onto here and reinstall this. Push this into place and make sure that you're sliding your drive shafts into each other kind of as you go. What you see there is basically the front assembly kind of put back together. All the drive shafts are there to the point where we can even test that diff action. So I'm going to get after it with this hex hardware and set this to the side. We'll see where we're at. I feel like we're really getting somewhere, so this is pretty cool. The phase of actually putting the shit back together when you've just done nothing but been ripping it apart for, you know, I've been on this car for about a month now, so it's pretty cool to get a chance to be like putting stuff back together and kind of seeing it take shape.